The Energy and Environment Committee. Today is Tuesday, May the 3rd. We are in room 1010. I'm Councilwoman Jan Perry, chair of the committee. Present with me at this time is Council Member Paul Koretz, and we have a short agenda. So, Mr. CLA, what is on the agenda right now?
Madam Chair, you have 3 items on your agenda. Items 1 and 2 recommend you take jointly, as much as they relate to the same similar issues relative to defective meters, billing and collection issues.
All right.
And you have no consent items.
Okay, great.
Item number 1, DWP report in response to motion Parks Perry relative to defective meters, billing and collection issues. And number 2, DWP report in response to motion Zion Parks relative to billing and collection issues.
Okay, great. Thanks. Mr. Nichols is here. Good. All right, Mr. Nichols. How are you?
Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. Ron Nichols with General Manager, Department of Water and Power. I have John Chen, who is responsible for our customer services division within the department.
Before you get started, I want to note for the record that Mr. Cardenas is present, so we have a full quorum of this committee. Great.
So, hold just a moment.
No, it's fine.
Go ahead. Okay, very good. There are 2 items that were on the agenda today, and they are somewhat interrelated. So, if you don't mind, I'd kind of like to address them en banc. And those 2 issues really are one in the matter of defective meters, both on the water and the power side, and then actually 3 issues overall. And then once we have that circumstance of either having a misread meter or an internal processing problem that's resulting in delayed billings to our customers, and these are a very minor number, but irrespective, if you're the customer that incurs this, it's an issue. We'll talk a lot of Mr. Chen going a little bit more with respect to the defective meters and some of the audits and work that we've done around that, what we're doing to correct that. But it's true, we do have, as any utility does, has a certain percentage of their meters that either aren't functioning at all, or in much more rare occasions simply aren't reading correctly, and that can be either overreading or underreading. The other issue that we have seen a little bit more attention here of late, and we had a meeting before the audit committee on this topic last week, is when we have a situation where we've had either haven't had a meter read, or we've had a meter read and we didn't internally process it in a manner on a timely basis, resulting in an accumulation of customer billing levels that then hit the customer with all at once and a bit of a surprise. And then so a third issue related to both of those, either a defective meter or a failure to either read a meter or to bill on it, is how do we deal with a customer when that happens? So these 3 are kind of all intercombined. I guess at a high level, I think it's important to recognize that, like I said, no utility has 100% accurate meters. And we'll talk a little bit about our audit process in a moment on that. The general billing and delayed billing issue, kind of the industry norm is about 98.5% of all bills come in timely and correct. In the industry overall, compared to other industries, a 1.5% error rate, not too bad unless you're one of the once you're one of the customers that incurs that. We, as a department, are better than that average. We're at about 99.75% that we get on time and accurate out there. So, from benchmarking to the industry, we do pretty well on that. Again, the issue is, what if you're that 1/4 of 1%? And that's the circumstance where I think we need to get on top of it better. We've heard some stories in the press, and I'm sure some of the individual council members and committee members here have heard from their people, their constituents, indicating concern about that. I've had phone calls on that since last week's hearing on this matter, and appropriately so. We are following up on that. We have a general standard approach that when a customer has for either due to a defective meter or our failure to read a meter, or once it's read, our failure to process that internally and get it on a bill properly, that when a bill comes to them, and we have a larger than normal balance because it's more than 1 month and sometimes many months that comes in, we have a standard procedure by which we are supposed to have that customer be able to take the same period of time for that delayed billing to pay it back. So if you were 4 months in arrears before you ever got a bill, we'll give you 4 months as our standard. We'll give you 4 months to pay off that accumulated balance on top of paying the normal bill. To the extent that that creates a hardship, we're instructed, and I'm kind of learning now, not necessarily always consistent about, working out payment plans on behalf of that customer to allow that to work that
One
out.
question to intervene.
Sure.
Is that a policy that the customer needs to request, or is that stated when they call in and say, I've got this huge bill, I don't know what to do? Is that something that is proactively offered by the department? Is it posted anywhere? Is it written anywhere so a customer knows that when they get this inordinately large bill, they know that there is a process, the due process for relief?
I'll let Mr. Chen respond to that. My understanding is that it's not necessarily written anywhere, but they're supposed to be advised of that. But John, if you could fill in on that.
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair. Yes, we do have a policy to work with the customers, so we have sent on numerous occasions emails of that policy to the floor, to every agent that's answering a phone call. Basically, we'll, ask them to work with the customer to provide them extra time to pay the bill. In addition to that, we have also implemented a process where we will not automatically send out large bills. We actually will pull the bill from the regular processing machines, and we will handle it with a special unit to make sure either draft a letter to the customer explaining the circumstances, and also work with the customer, letting them know the payment plan that can be arranged with them.
So basically, the customer service reps are advised from within the department to be proactive in addressing the issue when the customer calls in, and then you pull bills that are flagged because of their size, which I guess is some kind of an indication that there's something wrong, and then you begin to email the customer to advise them that there may be a problem? I just want to make sure I understand. Okay.
That's correct.
That is correct. Now, I'm saying, do we follow that to the letter in every circumstance? Probably not, and we're working on that. One of the other things that I think you've probably heard me or others before this committee indicate before, I think you're aware that we're in the middle of doing an update of an incredibly antiquated customer information system. We have a 1970s customer information system that is kind of difficult to even comprehend in this world right now. We literally are holding it together with baling wire, and we have an individual that is already at retirement age, who is our key person that deals with with the programming on that antiquated system. And I'm really sincerely hoping that person doesn't retire until such time that we get the CIS system done. It's that dire of a circumstance. How it got that way and didn't get addressed previously, I understand there's at least 2 occasions previously where we started to do an overhaul of that system. It's something endemic to the industry, has been, the utility industry, it has been for decades. We seem to be on the tail end of getting it fixed, but thankfully we are moving forward. We're about a year or so into a 3-year process to get that done. So the problem, that does exacerbate our situation. We're going to talk a little bit about a near-term fix that we're making here in a moment on the actual bill itself. But one of the problems that we get is just literally not being able to get a good sort of information, something that you take for granted. We have put out about 2 million customers between water and power. So we do 12 million bills a year. And so it's 50,000 a day that we're processing. So it's big numbers. And the fact that we only have 0.25% of those that are really these problem bills, we're actually fairly pleased about that. We want to get that number down better, and we want to get them handled better. The problem that we have in terms of being able to react quickly, or even more importantly, to be able to recognize before a customer calls us, is the fact that we just don't have the simple, normal digital sorting opportunities that you would typically have when you're dealing with 2 million pieces of information. Typically, that wouldn't be a problem. You could just slice and dice it, program something to go out to identify specific information and spit it back out to you to where you get down a really minor number of how many bills are this old, what sort of problems are there here, and you can segment stuff pretty quickly. For us to do that, our segmentation opportunities are wired into this program. And so when John's people want to go through and say, well, give me a sort on what might be these types of criteria that are already wired in that would tell us whether we have a problem, they get it printed out on the old big computer ledger paper, and it's an encyclopedia thick of something that then somebody has to go through page by page and try to sort through and figure out where there's a problem with that.
So as far as the update is concerned, and the gentleman, you don't want to retire before this is done, what's your timeline on that, or what's his retirement date? Which one comes first?
Well, let John speak to that.
Well, the replacement project, we're targeted to go live in the first quarter of 2013. So we already have over 80 people that's assembled to work on a particular project. There are over 2,100 work processes we have to go through individually and look at the current state and the future state. So it's a real enormous challenge for us, and we have to train over 1,000 people, users, in preparation for the launch. So I just, the magnitude and the scale of that project is significant, but we are well on the way in doing a lot of work.
You are fully funded to be able to achieve this by 2013?
We are.
Yes.
We are. We have in our current fiscal year budget that's sitting before council on our receipts and appropriations. We have about $50 million in this current year. It's a combination of labor, software, and hardware for that, and that's about 40% of the total budget on that on a multi-year basis. So we're working through that. That situation does create problems for us as being as proactive as we would like to be. One of the things that I think, and I'll have Mr. Chen go over this for you. I think we have, and I don't know if we have enough copies for all members.
Yeah.
But we have, one of the things that we have been able to do and put a focus on being able to do is at least to update our bill. Because I'm sure those of you who have seen the DWP bill, it is almost indecipherable. And it doesn't provide good information on it. This new bill will provide a lot more information that will help at least customers see, and frankly help us see, because we'll have the bills at least that will show information that shows the trailing 12 months. So if there's 12 months or 6 months of zeros, kind of know there's a problem.
Yeah, then there's a problem. A quick question, and Mr. Nichols, I don't think you were here when we started this, but the whole genesis of this came from a woman who's a lawyer. Her name is Barbara Blinderman, and she went through this bill, old format, line by line by line, and talked to me about it for quite a while. I put in a motion, and then it went into the department, and the department did a good job of doing focus groups and outreach to see people's perceptions and to better understand it. Now, I'm happy to see that we're ready to launch. I just want to know, and you may know because you've been here throughout the whole process, is this in conformance with what the focus group decided, or is this radically different? Because I got an email from Ms. Blinderman yesterday, and she expressed concern that the concept was somewhat different than what the focus group had discussed. And I just want to see if we were on the same page or not.
Yeah, it is. We have done close to 30 different focus groups with various parties, internal, external, and you're correct. With the guidance and direction, we worked with Barbara on that and invited her to a couple of those meetings. So it is a collective, we have a collective inputs from various parties. not necessarily exactly, the same as one person's
Where you start.
viewpoint,
Right.
but this is a collection of all the wisdoms out there, so all the inputs. So thank you again, Madam Chair, for your support on this.
Sure, yeah, and I just want to make sure that it was a reflection of the, I guess, compilation of many people's viewpoint from the focus groups, because that was the best place to start, to be able to understand how it affects the customers and how they perceive the bill and how they might not perceive the bill.
Right.
So tell us about that.
Would you want to go through that?
Well, initially, when we started the focus group, this actually started many years ago. For many years, even for the contact center, we'll receive about 10 to 20% of the calls coming in, just have general question about the bill. How much do I owe? Where's my, this particular line item? What is it for? Or, when we had different tier rates, say, what's my tier 1, consumption amount? What's my tier 2? So a lot of those questions were asked. And through the focus group, there's a lot of things that's identified. It's not very clear. They don't have a historical perspective of the consumption. It's all in numerical number comparison, but very few people actually reads it. So we're gathering. We also worked with external groups, neighborhood councils, and residential group in the various districts. And the feedback, we went through a lot of the iteration based on the feedbacks we got from the customer and from the general public. So it has been a long process. It's been almost an 18-month process. Throughout the process, it probably took at least 9 months to do the outreach and back and forth feedback. So we really took our time, and I think the team had done a great job in putting this together.
So how is just give us the highlights here on the bill itself.
Okay. Yeah, well, Mr. Nickel had indicated earlier, one of the things that we have identified as a chart is basically a historical chart, 12 months chart. So this is relevant because it ties back to the issue about the meter. So just in case if the consumption doubles or triples or it becomes zero, visually you can right away tell there's something wrong based on the historical usage from the customer perspective, and they can be very proactive, also contacting us, say, wait a minute, take a look at this particular account. Right beneath that, you can see the water, the tier 1 and tier 2. It delineates those numbers very clearly. We will be able to provide a personalized message for those bills. So when we talk about the new system in the future, we can dice and slice different data to segment the market, different markets of customers. We will be, for example, able to send information to just low-income customers, or the top 10 user in terms of consumption amount, or all the customer in the valley, all the customer in the West LA. So all those type of information can be tailored to the customer profile very easily. Then we can deliver personalized message to them, and we can even make them aware of the different rebate programs. So it really helps the energy conservation and water conservation in those terms. And I think it's sometimes very simple, but it's very important that we identify exactly how much amount is past due and how much is the total bill. Because in the past, it was just a one big lump sum number. And people say, so how much was 90 day, for example, past due? How much was just new amount that came in that's due in 30 days? So those has been distinguished also on the bill. We did work with Bureau of Sanitation, and we put different colors for the different charges so that we don't take all the credits for all the charges. I don't know.
Okay, I get it. Blue for water, green for sanitation.
Yes. So we have also done that. So those are some of the highlights, and hopefully, so far I know through the focus group people like it. So hopefully, it will be well received by the general public.
What's your launch date?
Yesterday.
Yesterday, so it launched yesterday. Okay,
Yes.
good. All right. For my fellow committee members, Mr. Cardenas and
Yeah,
Mr. Perez.
I made the mistake of offering to take over the billing process at my house. And immediately agreed. And then over the last few months, even though I'm doing the billing, she still opens up all the mail and corrects me when I've messed up. And it just so happened that we were on automatic payment for our Department of Water and Power. And then she comes up to me, she says, this thing hasn't been paid in like 4 months. So to defend myself, I reminded her that it was on automatic payment, so I don't know what that's all about. And so when I called the DWP, they said that that has happened to more than one customer who was on automatic payment because of the changeover in the system. So I wouldn't have known to ask that question had I not had to defend myself as to why an automatic payment didn't get paid automatically. How often did that occur? How long did it take to correct it? I literally walked into DWP, the old-fashioned where you can walk in and make a payment. There's one in my district. So I walked in and I said, I'd like to make this payment. And lo and behold, the guy says, on April such and such date, it's been paid and it's current. So obviously you corrected it and you billed me. But again, that's an example where out of one shot, I got 4 months worth of billing paid in one payment. So how are you handling that? Is that a thing of the past now that the new system launched today? What's going on?
So there's actually another to us, it was a pretty extensive but very exciting project we have undertook about a year ago. We had those third party that's handled the electronic payment for us, and it's causing problem because they have their own system and we have our own integrated system. So sometimes the information passed through, they may be miscommunicated, and some of the accounts may not exactly go through the way we wanted to. The other thing, that there's a delay on the posting. They may post on their system, but it takes a while for them to come back and update our system. So it was a struggle for many years. So as just 3 months ago, we actually brought all that function back in the house.
So you're not having the automatic payments done by a third party? It's not
No.
done by DWP directly?
We became the self-merchant, and we took all that, back into in-house, because we just can't afford those type of missteps and the delay, because we can be having field people sending out the field crew disconnect a service while they already pay and we don't even know. So those type of issues, we realized there were problems and we addressed it. So that right now it's just a transition. We sent a letter out to everybody.
So as of now, May on, we don't anticipate having those kinds of issues anymore?
I can't promise 100% now, but
No, I didn't ask you
yeah.
to promise 100%.
Yeah.
I said, as of May forward, where it looks as though those issues aren't going to be happening. It looks as though, right?
That's
In
correct.
other words, we feel confident at the Department of Water and Power that that matter has been addressed. Now, obviously, if something pops up, then you'll address that.
That's correct. So
Okay. So that, in essence, should be a thing of the past, that glitch.
That's
Okay,
correct.
on the automatic payment vote.
That's correct.
Okay. I just want to make a pitch for sanitation. Instead of green, because some people equate green water with murky, maybe they can do some kind of aqua blue or something, Mediterranean color, and that might be a little bit more appealing. On the billing every other month, I always thought that was kind of awkward. But at the same time, I've never asked the question, are other jurisdictions billing every other month versus every month?
Councilman,
I mean, is that common in the industry?
if there, of everything that we're doing right now in our whole customer billing and collections and messaging, that I could change, if I could wave a wand, it would be to change us to monthly billing for all of our customers.
Okay, so that begs the question, why are we doing it every other month?
It's the
And
system.
it sounds like it's not the
We
industry
can.
standard.
Well, it used to be.
Okay,
I'm talking decades ago, used to be. And at a time when, I lived in Sacramento for almost 30 years, and SMUD used to have every other month billing, as well.
yeah, but people don't pay for water over there, so. No.
I remember those north-south issues.
They don't have water meters.
Right.
So technically, if somebody hears the phone ringing and they've got the hose full blast, they can throw it down on the grass, get involved in a 2-hour conversation, come back outside and not even sweat the fact that they wasted all that water. They don't have meters, which is not good for Los Angeles, because we want that water.
Or they could actually leave the hose on while they went on a 2-week or 2-month vacation, too.
Exactly, and they pay the same exact amount, right? It's a flat amount.
That is correct. They are working on that up there, but I'm not here to defend them today. But you're absolutely right. But at the end of the day, other utilities used to do this when bills were small, and when the dollar amounts weren't all that significant. When water was not only cheaper but relatively cheaper. When power was not only cheaper today but relatively cheaper than other things. It was undertaken by the industry kind of broadly, not universally, but fairly broadly, particularly in those climates where you didn't see big, huge swings seasonally on their bills, and because it meant you could read meters a little less often. It was a less expensive way to get bills out. It was a money-saving thing that the industry as a whole generally did. We now have a CIS system that is built around doing that. That we literally, I think the second week I was here, John and I got together and said, John, what possibly can we do to be able to get our residential customers a monthly bill, so that they aren't juggling with this issue of having what has now become a pretty significant piece of their their monthly payment.
Is there light at the end of the tunnel?
The light at the end of the tunnel is our new CIS system. Until such time that we get that new CIS system out Q1 of 2013, we're stuck with what we have,
Okay, so
unfortunately.
hopefully sometime during 2013 and leading into that, we can actually pinpoint whether or not we can embark on a monthly billing system, and then we can go ahead and timeline whether or not, A, we can do that, and if we can do that, then we'll make a policy decision that we need to go to that or not at that time.
Oh, we'll certainly bring that before E&E, but I can assure you that's a huge priority for us to get that done. So, in our view, can't fathom that we wouldn't, pursue that policy.
Because that's one of the things that lends itself to people pulling their hair out and saying, I can't afford to pay this in one lump sum.
Exactly.
Because if it gets overlooked over 3 cycles, that's 6 months.
Yep.
Versus 3 months.
Exactly right.
Which is twice as much over 3 cycles. Now, I have a question about what kind of customer service efforts are going on in the department, because it just so happens that my staff, Macaria, who staffs me on this particular committee, and some of my district staff worked with a family, humble family, single family residents. All of a sudden they get hit with this massive bill that's like 5 times as much as it normally was. But the first answer that the person at the Department of Water and Power gave this constituent is, well, you're probably running your air conditioner longer than normal, et cetera. And these people are kind of like quasi on a fixed income. They'd rather sweat than use their air conditioner. So the bottom line is they were given just ridiculous responses. It was constantly being pushed back on their shoulders. And the only thing that saved them from paying the bill is their adult daughter, came home, and these barely speaking, English-speaking good people were literally in tears. And the daughter said, well, what's wrong? Is everything okay? They said, well, we got this bill. And their exact words were to their daughter is, we have to pay this bill. We don't want to get in trouble. So I guess we won't be able to pay the mortgage this month. Now, I think to the person in this room, none of us would pay a DWP bill before we pay the mortgage. But again, humble people who actually called the number on the bill, tried to be patient, tried to be respectful, and all they got was a bunch of garbage. No offense to sanitation. All they got was a bunch of good-for-nothing responses rather than true, let's see what's going on here. It took the council office, it took my staff's good work with the personal relationship that they have with the department to finally infiltrate somebody who would actually say the right thing to do is to go check the meter.
Right.
And when they checked the meter, lo and behold, the meter was broken. They fixed the meter, and then all of a sudden their bill goes back to normal and everything gets corrected. But had it not been for the council office getting involved, these people would have been in a dilemma with no real solution for no good reason. So what's going on with the department when it comes to customer service?
Well, it is an issue at times. It's pretty isolated, but any of those circumstances, in my view, are not acceptable, and we're working to change that. A couple of things that we're doing. We're working through an internal process. We just had a meeting of all of most of the customer service staff that are in our central office building just last week to start a process of making sure we're aware of that issue across that. Where are the it generally comes down to internal communication issues between that gets there. First of all, this gets to the problem to begin with, and then a matter of getting a heightened sense of customer service among our customer reps to recognize that when something comes up like this, don't automatically assume that it's the customer at fault, and that we should look into it, know what the issues are, and sort through that. We've got a group internally that are trying to focus through our basic processes, making sure that we're standardizing how we're working with our customers on these issues, and working through it in a more compassionate way. It's isolated. We're working through to try to make sure that problem gets minimized. I'd like to say eliminated, but we're talking about human beings, so there probably still will be some circumstances under that. But we're on the problem. We're focusing on that. We're going to have to put just more human effort into doing that in the near term. Post this new plan, when we have that new CAS, we'll have a screen that sits up in front of them that will give information back, much more current information. When was the last meter inspected? What do we know about? What's the past history about this? Information will pop up, and we'll get a lot better information in the customer rep side of the thing, so that they won't just automatically be assuming, well, it must be something wrong with the customer, because we'll have good information on that they don't have right now. That's not an excuse for our people not treating our customers with respect, and in those isolated conditions, we're really trying to get better at that.
The odd situation is that customer calling is actually your boss. It's the owner.
Yeah.
We're not Southern California Edison. We're not PG&E. Right. That person calling is actually the owner of the Department of Water and Power, and that just adds salt to the wound that people would actually treat the owner of the business that way, and the customer, that dual relationship. I just want to let you know, Ron, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to the head of the Department of Water and Power, you're about as customer service so far as anybody I've ever dealt with, and I've been dealing on this committee for 8 years now. So I want to compliment you on that, but I hope that you figure out a way to translate your personal customer service and your professionalism down to everybody in the department, because that's just one example of some of the problems that we have with your department, and the lack of customer service and the lack of respect to the actual people who keep the department going. Without people paying their bills, the department would collapse, and it just would cease to exist. So I'm looking at all the recommendations. Some of these I was going to recommend, but apparently the audits committee already covered those things. So with that, I just want to remind you that you're going through a task, again, that no other department head since I've been here has gone through, and that is going through an open process of showing how you can become much more efficient and as a department, and you've taken on that task. And where's that in the process relative to this? Are you cutting this particular crew of folk, or this the segment of your department that covers this issue of customer complaints and billing and things of that nature?
In terms of the hiring freeze that I was talking about, you mean?
Well,
cost
my
cut?
understanding that you're going beyond the hiring freeze. You're actually working on the department over the next few years operating with several hundreds of millions of dollars less than they've been accustomed to operating over the past few years. Right?
That is correct, in a number of different ways, and we're sorting through what those priorities are and where we can best apply staff, and dealing with the fact that, as I indicated when we talked about the cost cuts, is we're looking at typically 400 to 500 people a year leaving just primarily due to retirement, just given the baby boomer trend that every business and organization is seeing. And we won't backfill all of those positions. We'll backfill a significant number of them, but we won't backfill all of those. We are certainly looking across all of our organizations, customer service being of course one, to make sure that as positions are being vacated by people that are departing, that we're getting the right backfill in those areas that are most critical to getting things done. Additionally, once we get this customer information service in place, we anticipate that we will be able to do much better with certainly no more and potentially a little fewer people on doing that, because we won't have to be manually dealing so many things and shuffling things back and forth between units within the organization. But I can assure you, this issue has my attention. It has John's attention to focus through on recognizing we can't just sit around and wait till the first quarter of 2013 and blame our CIS system for inadequate, compassionate working with our customers. And you're absolutely right. Our customers own DWP. They deserve better. We're working to try to get them better as we go through that process.
Mr. Correct.
Yeah, I've had similar experiences with my office to that of Mr. Cardenas, although I think the cases that were high profile were generally before you were on board, so you may not be aware of them. And the couple that come to mind that were the most dramatic, we had one private residence similar to Mr. Cardenas' example, but this is a water problem where they weren't billed for 4 months, and during that 4-month period, probably the entirety of that period, something had sprung a leak, and they were given a bill of something like $10,000, and they were devastated, couldn't pay it, and they were told they had to pay it. And again, it gets to the council office, and I think it should be clear, even with the council office being intervening, and that's the only way this would have gotten resolved in a positive way. We had a caseworker that practically had to strong-arm the department to finally get their attention and get it handled appropriately. And that person sort of picked up major DWP problems and now gets them when they pop up because she developed that talent for it. But it shouldn't take that level to get something like that addressed. I mean, ideally, as you said, the system would spot it, and you would actually pull that bill and say, they were paying $100 a month. Now they have a $10,000 bill. How did this happen?
Right.
So again, I suspect, I don't know if every council office has had a few of these, but I suspect we have.
I would suspect so as well.
There's one, I don't recall if it actually was in my district, but I was told about it and we tried to help. I'm sure it got taken care of in some way, but a commercial building was not billed for their electricity for 10 years.
10 years?
10 years. Something, and this is a vague recollection.
That's
Could
a new one on me.
Could be 11 years, could be 9 years, and they were given a bill of something like $1 million something, and told, pay your bill. And again, obviously, they should have been smart enough to figure out something was wrong. They never were asked to pay for electricity for a large commercial building. And then again,
come to mind. Yeah.
Then again, being hit with $1 million bill or whatever it was, a little crazy. So, obviously, clearly a problem. I think your computer problem isn't unique to DWP, as I've been somewhat surprised to find in conversations about efficiencies. I think the city proper has the same problem. We have some programs that are still run on COBOL. A lot of people have never even heard of that system, but
For ours is.
where you have, again, one person that is close to retirement that knows how to run some of our antiquated systems. And hopefully if they retire, they can be pulled back on a 90-day contract till the city gets its computer act together as well. I don't know if DWP and the city should be communicating on this, because if we're all looking at updating our systems, maybe we shouldn't be reinventing the wheel and having DWP do the whole thing and having the city do the whole thing. And then I don't know if our other proprietary departments have the same experience. So you may want to have that IT conversation to see if we're not double working those. Other than that, I think things are moving positively. I think your approach to customer service, I think, is a good one. I think the approach to the bill is a good one. Although there still are so many things on it that without a roadmap, with this roadmap, I think it's very helpful. So you may want to send this out again every once in a while to customers to remind them what everything is. But with that, it's all very easy to understand. I think people will appreciate it. So that's all.
Thank you. Mr. CLA, in order for us to get downstairs on time, I think we ought to continue item 3
Certainly.
for 2 weeks. With respect to this item, what are our recommendations? I know we have an either-or proposition, and
You've got two options here since you have two motions. One is specific, the design motion is specific to requesting an audit be conducted by the Controller's Office with respect to these issues. The Parks motion is specific to just addressing the defective water and power meters and so forth, and there's already a report on file answering those issues. You could forward both motions to council,
Yeah.
request approval, or if you'd like to work on the matter further here in committee, keep the Parks motion in this committee, refer the design motion back to audits and governmental efficiency, they could forward it to council to their liking.
actually, I wouldn't mind having a report back in, say, 120 days on the Parks motion to see what progress has been made, and then to see, we all have stories, every one of us, so to see if they have gone down statistically or not. So why don't we, if there's no objection, why don't we approve the first motion and then hold the second one in committee to come back in 120 days with an update from the department? No objection?
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay, great, all right.
You mean the first, the
First Parks.
So
Yeah, 110569, go ahead and approve. Oh, wait, they're both 11.
I think it's the other way around.
Sorry, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
we got it. So approve the design motion and then
Right.
hold the Parks motion.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, got the numbers backwards. Okay, great. And then we'll continue item 3 for 2 weeks. This is the portion of the meeting for, and by the way, I'm looking forward to feedback from your launch.
Yes.
I'm sure we'll get it.
You too. I'm sure we'll hear.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll hear about it.
Hopefully more favorable than not.
Yeah, it looks good, so let's see what people have to say. This is the, why do we need to start if we're going to continue it? Oh, I'm sorry, I need to recommend or request that the CAO begin to prepare the report on item 3, which has been continued for 2 weeks. Okay. Now, this is the portion of the committee for items that are not on the agenda, public comment period. For those wishing to come forward during public comment period, this would be the time to come forward. If there are no public comment cards, then the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.